Hi, my name is Grace Wedekin, and these are stories of jobs that I've been in my career story in total. So, fifth grade was the earliest that I had a calling or prompting that I felt on my life towards being a therapist. As a little kid, I had a strong desire to be around people and to help people. I think this kind of came from my upbringing. My parents are both in ministry, and my dad was a pastor, so I was around people all the time. And I saw my dad demonstrate being in ministry, and I saw my mom also being that servant leader. We were doing a career project in fifth grade, and that was the first time I came across being a therapist. And I did my whole presentation on being a therapist one day, and that's what I wanted to be when I grew up. So, my first real job that I had, I guess you can consider it being a real job, but I worked for my parents. In 2007, my dad got out of ministry and opened a coffee shop. So, it was a small business being opened in the middle of a recession. So, you can only imagine some of the stressors that came with that, that as a kid, I got to witness. So, I was around the ages 12 at this time. So I started working really early. I have memories of working on building up the coffee shop with both of my parents. And I have memories of steaming milk at age 12 and pulling coffee shops or espresso shots and manning the drive-through all at a young age. My parents really trusted me at this age because I was a pretty responsible kid. But I was able to kind of take charge and learn the ins and outs of being a barista at this coffee shop. I had this job throughout all of high school for the most part. I remained working for my parents even when I got different jobs. But as I got older, and as I was older in high school, I started to take charge of different things and get responsibilities. Um, with the coffee shop. So if my parents were away and they needed me to shut down the coffee shop, I would shut down the coffee shop. I would count the till, take it to the bank. We also had a little coffee shop, a part of the local YMCA, and I would do the teen nights with one of my really good friends. She also worked for my parents, and we would have sleepovers, and we'd both go to work in the morning. So there is definitely some positive memories there. Every now and then I get a flashback on my phone of a picture of my friends or my sister and I, and we're all, sisters and I, and we're all at the coffee shop working together. So it was kind of a growing up experience that was outside of a typical childhood. But it taught a lot of really good lessons. It taught responsibility. It taught me how to read a recipe and follow instructions and listen to my managers, aka my parents, and what respect looks like in the workplace. So that definitely had some different learning experiences for me. But working with my parents, there's always going to be a little bit of negative experiences as well, because I was still a kid and they're still my parents. And as responsible as I presented myself to be, there was definitely butting heads. So over on the picture on the right here is a picture of my family actually at my high school graduation party, and we're at the coffee shop. So those are my sisters and my mom and my dad, and around us, we're just at the coffee shop having that party for me. And then we have the coffee and chocolate Great Lakes coffee shop logo there. So once I got tired of working for my parents, I say that jokingly, but it was really just to be a healthy teenager and have some separation. I wanted to have a job of my own, and that first job of my own was at Stap Brunch Brown Bag and Bakery. So I started this probably my sophomore year, still remained working at the coffee shop every now and then with my parents. Um, but I was able to enter a work study program in my high school. And so, in some of the hours in the afternoon, I was able to get high school credits and then get paid to work. So that was a really great extra that I got to do in high school. And then there was a little bit of like a career vocational class that was added with that. So learning different vocational skills, learning customer service skills, learning proper food handling skills, um, different things like that. So I loved this job. To this day, I think back of memories and go, man, that was a great time. I worked with some of my other friends with high school at this place, and working here was like the place to work in high school. It was super busy, super trendy for the time. But I loved working here. I was a barista and I worked the pastry counter. I did hosting and then I bussed tables as well. So having this job kind of allowed me to get some of my own independence working away from my parents. It allowed me to kind of enter the world in a safe way through a job and get to know different people, as well as deal with different kinds of customers without my parents having to be there and helping guide those things. It kind of threw me into the water to handle different situations, different customer service situations, and learn some independence and responsibility as well. So through working in a restaurant, I have really found that there's always going to be, um, whether it's restaurant or fast food, some different kinds of coworkers. At this job, I did have some questionable coworkers, and some negative experiences through that. Um, I had sexual harassment in the workplace here that I had to report a few times from some of the guys in the kitchen, and have had to navigate that with my supervisor. Even though that was a negative experience, I was able to watch my supervisors at work handle that in an effective manner, to where it protected me and it also set the boundary of what is appropriate and not appropriate in the workplace. So that was really positive for me to see, as far as leadership goes in a restaurant and in the working industry, really. Um, so I worked here up until I was done with high school. And even when I was on college breaks, I would come back and work for them over those Christmas breaks, the holiday breaks, Thanksgiving, etc. Eventually, my family moved away from this area. And that was the time where I really had to quit this job, where I was really sad about that because it really was such a positive experience. And then when all of my college friends came home, we worked at the same place on those Christmas breaks. So it was just really good, fond memories of this place altogether, where I just got to learn a lot of independence away from my family. So, summertime nannying. This is something I also did in high school. I did a lot of different jobs and managed those with work, school, sports, etc. But nannying was a fun one that I got to be a part of. So, I nannied for this family over every summer in high school. So this nannying position really taught me because I was balancing working at the coffee shop sometimes, being a barista at SAP, work, sports, school. It really taught me a lot of time management. And it really taught me how to look at my scheduling and make things work. I really loved the jobs that I did. I did a lot. I've always been a busybody. I've always had things scheduled for me. And being a hard worker really, I feel like is something that I've just always had within me. I've always been that busybody person. I've had to learn how to put the reins on it at times as I've gotten older, but I've always just been on the go. But this did teach me how to work with those different schedules and time manage. So I wasn't exhausting myself, one, and two, overscheduling things, and making sure that I was at the right place at the right time. This job also gave me an opportunity to enjoy summer with these kiddos. Those are the ones who are pictured on the side here. Two boys, started them at a very young age, and both of them are graduated from high school now and in college, which is crazy. Makes me feel old. But I got to enjoy summer with these kids, and it really gave me a love for working with kids to begin with. I've always loved kids, but this was kind of the start of my passion with working with younger kids. That is part of what I want to do with my therapy career is working with younger kids, the adolescent age to that early teenage year. So this gave me my first insight to the minds of 5 and 7 year olds. So babysitting was definitely something that I did throughout high school for a variety of different families. And then once I went to college, I continued to babysit for some different professors' kids in college. So it still gave me that exposure to um, navigating parents and navigating younger kids. So another exposure to navigating kids, I worked at Spring Hill summer camps for 2 years or 2 summers. Summer one, it was after my freshman year of college. This is my first year of being a camp counselor. This was such a good experience for me. The picture in the blue is from summer one with some of the different co-counselors that I had. And it gave me a lot of different experiences with kids. This was the middle school age, and middle schoolers can be a little bit more awkward. So it really gave me good exposure to navigating some of those different things of stepping into our individuality and figuring out who we are and kind of that transition to going to high school. So I got to experience different things with kids. Um, and also during this first year, I had a lot of experiences where kids, um, the girls that I worked with or that came into summer camp would come to me and they would start telling me about things and they'd be telling me their life story and some different themes and stuff would come up. But I just really found myself that summer feeling like people just wanted to pour out their stories to me. So much so that students had really opened up about things going on in the home, and actually resulted in a couple of different DCS calls. So, um, after I was done with this summer, I really felt a calling on my life to change career path in college. So originally I went to be an addictions counselor in college. But after this year, I took a step back and I said, do you know what? I think I want to do social work. Social work gives me a larger perspective, or sorry, a larger population of people to work with. And it's going to allow me to have some of these different experiences with families and kids that I really wanted to have, but didn't know that I would like. And it didn't know that I would have the relationship building skills to be in people's lives in that capacity. And so after this summer, I went back to school and I changed my major to social work. Um, Social work, I really felt too was like a logical step for me. It would be a stepping stone to going to be a therapist. Um, if I wanted to still do that route at the end of school. But it also would be a good fallback of I have all this variety of different jobs that I could do if I ended up not being a therapist. I didn't have a bunch of confidence in myself in schooling at this point, so it was important to me to have something logical to be a stepping stone for if I wanted to go back to school, and then also that fallback just in case I didn't feel like I was capable of going to get my master's. So a lot of different positive experiences from summer number one. Summer number two was the summer after my sophomore year, and I went back as a camp counselor supervisor. So that's the summer in the orange shirts on the slide. Um, so I was the supervisor to the camp counselors in my age group, and the other girls were my other two co-supervisors as well. So there are three females on a team and three males on a team for one age group. So the six of us all worked together, and unfortunately, this summer resulted in a lot of different negative experiences. Um, I had some different experiences with my team members, and then our director ultimately not being able to handle that very well. I saw a lot of poor leadership at this time. Um, for example, I had a situation where one of the girls on our team was having a really bad day. So, two of us, the two females, me and another one, went into town and brought her back Starbucks on our break. Well, somebody else on the team was upset that we did this for somebody else and didn't do it for them. And our director that was over us had told us that if we were going to do something nice for one person, that we had to do it for everybody. And there are little leadership things like that that left a bad taste in my mouth. And as much as I loved working with the kids and working with the other camp counselors, um, I realized that role was really not a good fit for me. Navigating leadership was not something I really desired to do. I wanted to be more hands-on with the kids. While it was a good opportunity to hone in my own leadership skills and just have different experiences, positive or negative, I was able to see leadership, what I liked about leadership, what I didn't like about leadership, and try to navigate that for myself and try to find a good fit for myself in my own leadership skills. Um, Overall takeaway from this summer camp experience was it put me on a trajectory towards being a social worker, which put me on to the next step to becoming a therapist. But it also taught me good relationship skills and having connectedness with people. Being a camp counselor was great. We got to share our stories. It was a Christian camp, so we got to share our testimonies with kids. We got to really help them grow in their relationship with God. And we also just got to have a lot of fun with these kids and with each other. And building relationships was such a strong part of what these summers were all about, building relationships with the kids and building relationships with our coworkers. That leads me to my next job, was being a house parent at Josiah White's, which is where I work still today. So I think in my junior year of college, 2019, I believe. I started working as a house parent at Josiah White's. And the story to getting here is kind of wild. My family, who lives in northern Wisconsin, I was up for a week off, and it was a week off that I had from the summer camp, actually. And I was out to eat with my parents after church and some friends of theirs, and then friends of theirs. And we were kind of talking about my summer camp experience and how I did have a passion to work with kids. And they were just kind of talking about that passion with me. And they said, "Have you heard of Josiah White's?" I said, "No." Funny enough, it was only 20 minutes up the road from the college that I went to, and I had never heard of this place. And I'm in the middle of nowhere, northern Wisconsin, and these people are telling me about Josiah White's, which is right next to me. I'm a neighbor to this town. So they're telling me about Josiah White's and having it be a residential facility. And this residential facility is either a step down from a DOC placement or the last step towards a DOC placement. But ultimately, it's going towards reunifying with the family. And so they're telling me about Josiah White's and the mission there. And they were telling me that both the guy I was talking to and his wife had both been students at Josiah White's. And so, after hearing about this place, I went back home and I looked it up and I said, you know what, this place would be a really good fit for me. It's going to be a different demographic. I was working with middle schoolers before, but they were all well-to-do families with some different DCS backgrounds with the things going on in the home. However, now it's strictly just those kids that have been in the system their whole lives. So I was really excited to hear about this place. And so I got a job while in college working here, and I thought it was going to be a part-time position. But silly me did not realize that a residential facility, this isn't a place that you can just leave a product on a shelf. And so I'm thinking that the part-time job is really truly part-time, whereas the full-time job here is way more than 40 hours for this position. Um, Typically, it was a day that started at 6 a.m. and ended at 10 p.m. So you're with the kids all day until the night shift gets there. Well, I didn't really realize some of those scheduling things when I started this job. So the first week that I was training, I worked 60 plus hours and attended my college classes and was doing homework. So I learned a valuable lesson there to make sure I ask questions in interviews and what scheduling really is truly going to look like. So I use that as a teaching tool now all the time to teach the kids that I work with to ask good questions in interviews. Um, But so when I started this house parenting job, I'm in a cottage with 8 to 12 kids, whether it's from we have a couple different demographics that we work with, but we have a behavioral cottages, um, drug and rehabilitation program, and then sexually maladaptive population. And so I'm working with these new kids with different demographics than really what I'm used to. This is my first exposure, well, true exposure towards this population. So I'm learning how to navigate those things. There are a lot of behavioral challenges, and I was a floater when I first started as a house parent. So a floater means that you go from cottage to cottage to cottage. So it's population to population to population. You're not just in one cottage with one population as your specialty. So I was learning how to navigate a ton of different behavioral challenges with these kids. And not only is it with population, but it's also individualized treatment. So the way that one student responds to something is not going to be the way that another student responds to the way that something's reacted to, or the way that something's handled. So I had a lot of personal growth in this position. I was in this position for 2 full years and 2 full summers. But I had a lot of personal growth just with learning different backgrounds that people come from. And also, I was learning how to have a tough skin. There'd be times that, there is a level of an accountability that I had to provide in this role. And so if I corrected a kid, they may blow up at me and cuss me out and tell me I'm every name in the book. And I really had to learn that, this reaction is not about me. This has to do with everything with one, you're clean and you're sober right now and you're away from your family, but it is simply a reaction towards the discontentment with their life or their frustrations with their life or what may be going on at home. It wasn't about me. But I did have, with that understanding, I still had an opportunity to get a little bit of a tougher skin because you have to have that in this line of work. Everything is not personal. Everything does not need to be um, taken to the heart or worn heavily. Yes, it is saddening to know that the kids are having such inner turmoil that they would treat people a certain way. But at the end of the day, it's that realization of what were the examples that they had what were the examples that they had at home? What's going on at home? What are they going on and what's going on in their personal lives? There's all these things that accumulate for them to react and treat people in certain ways. This place also, or this position also gave me an area to hone in on different skills. So I'm using therapeutic skills and de-escalation skills every day, almost every minute of the day within the cottage that I'm working with. So really, I am uh, a mother figure, a sister figure to these students, but I'm providing that accountability. So you have to learn the proper therapeutic response to each of these kids. And in order to do that, you have to have a relationship to them. Some people are going to respond by a more stern, like, hey, you guys know what you need to be doing, you need to cut it out um, response. And some kids need to be taken to the side and say, hey, I didn't want to embarrass you in front of people, but this behavior is not appropriate. You kind of learn what students prefer and how students like to be, how they best respond to the staff when you're in those relationships. And I really was able to see the difference between watching other people interact with kids, whether they had a relationship or not with the kids. You can tell who has a relationship with who by how the students respond to their staff. Because most of the time you say, "Hey, you guys aren't supposed to be cussing. Please stop." They'll cuss you right back. Okay. But if you do have a relationship with them, you can see that they are more receptive to that feedback. So it's learning those therapeutic skills and then really learning those relational skills with them as well. And getting to know people and build that rapport was really that stepping stone being a house parent. So that leads me to my position today. This is my team down here. And then up, this corner over here. is my supervisor and I on the outsides working with a group of students. So I am an IL coordinator, which stands for Independent Living Coordinator. I started this job in 2020. Um, Started at the beginning of COVID, right before lockdown. So that was a really interesting experience in a residential facility. But essentially, my independent living coordinator position is working with kids 16 and up, and teaching them, I call it adulting class, but it's adult skills. So anywhere from hygiene, personal hygiene, to getting your apartment for the first time. And we have a huge career building part of the curriculum where we're working on interview skills, preparing for an interview. All of my students leave with a resume so they can get ready to get their first job. And then we also do some different personality assessments. We do the golden retriever, otter, lion. What's the other animal that's a part of that? We do those kind of personality tests to see if they're task driven or if they're relational driven, and what kind of things that they like in that personality test. So we use some different things like that. I've used the Myers-Briggs with them to get a better grasp and a better idea of their personality and their strengths and their weaknesses that can contribute towards a career or a possible vocational path for them. So I do work lightly with them in that matter, but there are so many other topics that we cover. So that's the career sections actually our biggest and our longest that we focus on. So I do groups weekly. I run about 12 groups a week with 16 and up students. I run these educational groups, but I also get to do a lot of fun activities. The picture on here, I do a lot of pro-social activities with the students. And so I'm a CrossFit instructor, and so is my supervisor in that picture. And we've been taking kids to the CrossFit gym in town for the last couple of years. And we actually got a handful of them that wanted to do a competition. So this past October, we got to take them to do a competition. And it was such an awesome opportunity, pro-social activity for them to do. They learned to encourage each other, encourage themselves, and a lot of self-love and self-care came from this experience for them as well. So I get to do a lot of fun things with my job that I have now. We do every July we do a canoe trip, another pro-social activity that they get to do, just being out in the outdoors and seeing value in that. I have had a lot of difficulties in my position, so I've been here for 6 years with my house parenting position added in. And in my position that I'm in now, I have always from the beginning had a really difficult time finding a place for myself. And I'm kind of on my own little island. I'm the only IL coordinator here. I work with the case management group, but I am a state managed position. And despite being a state managed position, my job has not gotten much importance put to it, or people don't see a lot of importance in it. And so I've kind of been a trailblazer for myself in a sense of honing in on the really important parts of my job and getting buy-in from the students to help demonstrate the importance of learning these different skills that I'm teaching them. So there's been some difficulties with that with my with different coworkers that I've had and just having uh, a difficult time navigating relationships with my coworkers while in this position. But ultimately, White's led me to meeting the Huntington University recruiter. So in the midst of some of these difficulties, I really had a moment where I had said to myself, I see importance in my job, but it's really hard to get anything done in my position when nobody else sees importance in it. Even though, again, I'm a state mandate. And I had told myself after I was done with my bachelor's that I really did not want to go back to school. I did not have good self-confidence in my educational skills. And so I wanted to take time off. But I met the career recruiter at a opportune time. And, I said to myself, I'm going to try this out. I'm going to try going back to school and maybe this will be a leap of faith for me that helps me have a better college experience and educational experience and helps me to have self-development that builds my confidence in my educational abilities. So this was another stepping stone towards me coming to Huntington and being a therapist. This entire time, I still wanted to be a therapist, but I had experiences at my university that made me feel like maybe I wasn't equipped or smart enough to get my master's. So it really was a big leap of faith for me. So, conclusion, as I kind of look through my entire story, there is such a trend of working with people and working with kids and building meaningful relationships with people that end up being fruitful, healing, or therapeutic in some way or another. But as I look back too, I can also kind of see God's thread of provision through my life. I know that I was a little scrambled as I talked through some of these different points, but I really can see God's hand kind of moving me through gently at his time to what that next step was. And I'm now at the awesome position of having 1.5 classes until I graduate, and I made it to being a therapist. So that little girl in me in fifth grade that said, I'm going to be a therapist one day, despite some experiences that I had that kind of hurt my self-confidence and my educational abilities, I was able to kind of heal my inner child there and listen to her and say, I'm going to be a therapist one day, and I do have the tools to get there. So it's just really cool to see God's provision in all of this. And that's my story.